Harold Shipman, the doctor of death, inside the murders and the systemic failures. He was the trusted doctor in a quiet English town, a family GP known for his gentle manner and impeccable record, but behind the white coat and wire-rimmed glasses was a man hiding a monstrous secret, over 200 patients dead, a secret love affair, and one woman who may have known too much. This is the chilling story of Harold Shipman, not just the UK's most prolific serial killer, but a man whose crimes may have been driven, at least in part, by passion, obsession, and the desperate need to protect a relationship. Who was Harold Shipman, the trusted doctor who became Britain's deadliest serial killer, early life and personality? Born on January 14, 1946, Nottingham, England. Named Harold Frederick Shipman, but was nicknamed posthumously Dr. Death. Harold grew up in a working-class family. His mother, Vera, was strict, controlling, and highly influential. Shipman was her favorite, and this favoritism shaped his sense of superiority. When Vera was diagnosed with terminal cancer in the early 1960s, a teenage Harold witnessed the compassionate care she received, particularly the administration of morphine to ease her suffering. She died when he was 17. This moment is widely seen as the turning point in his psychological makeup, as he associated control over death with power and mercy. Medical education and early red flags. Shipman studied medicine at Leeds School of Medicine, graduating in 1970. He was competent but not exceptional academically. In his early career at Pontefract General Infirmary, colleagues noticed his arrogance and his desire to work independently rather than collaboratively. In 1975, while working as a GP in Todmorden, he was caught forging prescriptions for pethidine, a synthetic opioid similar to morphine, to feed his addiction. He was fined, underwent rehabilitation, and was quietly removed from his practice. However, the General Medical Council did not strike him off the register, and by 1977 he was practicing again. This was a critical failure of oversight. Establishing his practice in Hyde, the perfect setup, in 1993, Harold Shipman opened his own solo practice in Hyde, Greater Manchester. This gave him complete autonomy, privacy, and control, the perfect setting for what would become a killing ground. He styled himself as an old-fashioned, compassionate doctor who made house calls, especially to elderly patients. How he gained trust. He dressed formally, always in a shirt, tie, and tweed coat. He offered undivided attention to each patient. He was calm, soft-spoken, and reassuring. He avoided hospitalizing patients, reinforcing their trust in his at-home care. Many older women, often widowed or alone, adored him and saw him almost as a surrogate son or confidant. The murders, methods and victim selection. Shipman's murder method was chillingly simple. He would inject his victims with lethal doses of diamorphine, medical-grade heroin, often during routine home visits or in his office. Key tactics. He told families their loved one had died of natural causes, strokes, heart attacks, or old age. He discouraged post-mortems. He signed death certificates himself. When victims were cremated, all physical evidence vanished forever. He specifically targeted elderly women living alone or those unlikely to question authority. It is believed he may have selected patients who mildly irritated him or simply offended his sense of control. Notable victims and cover-ups. 1. Sarah Marsland, 1984. One of the earliest suspected murders. A fit and active woman in her 60s, she died suddenly after a visit from Shipman. Her family was told it was a stroke, no post-mortem requested. 2. Marie West, 1995, a vibrant widow, very active in the community. She died suddenly at home, and Shipman told her family she just slipped away peacefully. He signed her death certificate and discouraged cremation questions. 3. Nora Nuttall, 1996. Shipman saw her frequently. After her death, he instructed the family not to bother with an autopsy, saying she wouldn't have wanted all that fuss. Only years later would her death be linked through records and computer data. 4. Kathleen Grundy, 1998. The victim whose death incidentally led to him being caught. The start of the killings. The earliest suspicious deaths date back to 1975, when Shipman was practicing in Todmorden, West Yorkshire. At first, they were spaced out, elderly patients, seemingly natural causes. But once he opened his own practice in Hyde in 1993, the deaths accelerated. Most were older women, always alone, always found dead shortly after a home visit, and they always died, peacefully. The cause? Morphine overdoses. The method? Disguised as kindness. But the real question was why? Money? Maybe. Control? Absolutely. But some believe the answer lies in the one woman Shipman couldn't control. Completely. The one woman Shipman couldn't control. Every predator has a blind spot, a weakness, a person they can't intimidate. For Harold Shipman, that person was Angela Woodruff, a sharp, no-nonsense solicitor, and the daughter of one of his last victims. Her mother, Kathleen Grundy, had been active, healthy, and still serving her community in her 80s. When she suddenly died after a visit from Shipman, the doctor assured everyone it was natural causes. No need for alarm, no need for an autopsy. But then Angela received something chilling. A typewritten will, allegedly from her mother, leaving everything, not to her family, but to Dr. Harold Shipman. Angela Woodruff wasn't just grieving, she was furious and suspicious. Her mother would never type a will, she would never leave out her family, and she would never trust anyone blindly, not even her own doctor. Unlike dozens of others, Angela didn't hesitate. She challenged Shipman, she reported him, and her persistence forced authorities to exhume her mother's body, which revealed traces of diamorphine, the drug Shipman had used in secret for years. Angela was the match that lit the fuse. She was the woman Shipman couldn't manipulate, couldn't silence, and couldn't control. And that fact alone raises chilling questions. Was Angela Woodruff just the woman who exposed him? Or was she a symbolic trigger, the very kind of independent, educated woman Shipman couldn't dominate, and had learned to avoid by preying exclusively on the elderly and vulnerable? Some believe his crimes were driven by more than opportunity, that his need to control life and death itself stemmed from a deep resentment toward those who threatened his illusion of power. Angela didn't just uncover a killer, she revealed the limit of his power and perhaps the root of his monstrous need for control. The death of Kathleen Grundy. Kathleen Grundy was a former Hyde mayor, wealthy, respected, and very much alive and active in her 80s. She was found dead in June 1998, just hours after a visit from Shipman. But what made her death suspicious wasn't how she died. It was what followed. A new will was found, leaving everything to Dr. Harold Shipman. Kathleen's daughter, a lawyer, immediately suspected foul play, and when the body was exhumed, morphine, massive doses. That discovery cracked Shipman's perfect facade. But behind the scenes, another motive emerged. Some investigators speculated that Grundy had confided something to Deborah Massey, perhaps questioned Shipman's ethics or behavior. Was she threatening to expose him? Did Shipman kill to silence her and protect his relationship? Kathleen Grundy, the murder that exposed Harold Shipman, 1. Who was Kathleen Grundy? Kathleen Grundy was no ordinary patient. Born in 1916, she was a well-respected former mayor of Hyde, an energetic 81-year-old pillar of her community in Greater Manchester, England. She was highly active in charity work, mentally sharp and physically fit, and widely admired for her independence and civic involvement. Despite her age, she had no major health issues and showed no signs of being terminally ill. 2. The day of her death. June 24th, 1998. On the morning of June 24th, 1998, Kathleen Grundy had scheduled activities. She was expected to go to Age Concern, a local charity she volunteered with. She had spoken with friends and seemed perfectly well the previous day. That morning, she had a routine home visit from her GP, Dr. Harold Shipman. Shortly after, she was found dead at home, slumped in a chair. Shipman was called and arrived quickly. He declared she had died of old age and that no post-mortem was necessary. He advised her daughter and funeral services that cremation was unnecessary. He even insisted she be buried, which was unusual for Shipman, as most of his victims were cremated. But this choice would become his undoing. 3. The forged will. Shortly after Kathleen's death, her daughter, Angela Woodruff, a solicitor, was shocked to receive a newly typed will, allegedly signed by her mother just months before her death. This will excluded Angela and the rest of the family entirely. Left $386,000, the bulk of Kathleen's estate, to Dr. Harold Shipman. Contained odd wording, including phrases her mother would never use, like, "my good friend." Angela immediately knew something was wrong. Her mother never used a typewriter. She handwrote personal notes and legal documents, was meticulous and had never mentioned changing her will, had a warm and open relationship with her daughter. This exclusion was completely out of character. Angela reported the suspicious will to the police. 4. The police investigation begins. The police, led by Greater Manchester Police, began their investigation quietly. Initial steps included contacting the coroner, who confirmed Shipman had signed off the death with no post-mortem requested, speaking with local forensic document examiners, who quickly found that the will was almost certainly a forgery. Reviewing Shipman's past records and behavior, which led to further questions about his role in Grundy's death and possibly others. But they needed proof. That meant doing something almost unheard of in English villages, exhuming the body of an elderly woman. 5. Exhumation and autopsy of Kathleen Grundy. On August 1, 1998, after a discreet authorization process, Kathleen Grundy's body was exhumed from Hyde Chapel Cemetery. A full post-mortem was conducted by forensic pathologists. They found high levels of diamorphine, medical heroin, in her muscle tissues. That drug is normally used in terminal cancer care under strict medical control. In palliative settings, not in home visits for healthy patients, there was no reason whatsoever for Grundy to have been given morphine. It was now evident she had been deliberately overdosed, and only one man had access: Dr. Harold Shipman. 6. Arrest of Harold Shipman. On September 7, 1998, Harold Shipman was arrested at his home and office. Police seized his computer and handwritten patient records, prescription pads, vials of diamorphine, some improperly recorded, the typewriter used to forge the will. Shipman denied any wrongdoing, even when confronted with the evidence of the morphine and the will. He claimed Grundy wrote the will herself, a lie easily disproved. Further analysis of his computer revealed suspicious post-death edits to medical records of multiple patients, entries made after a patient had already died, likely to justify the cause of death he wrote on certificates. This digital trail was his second fatal mistake. 7. The domino effect, opening the floodgates. As detectives examined Shipman's other patients, they found disturbing patterns. Sudden deaths after house calls, consistent use of morphine in similar dosages, deaths mostly involving elderly women, often alone at home. No referrals to hospitals, even when symptoms warranted it. Death certificates signed without coroner involvement. Families never questioned anything because they trusted their doctor. Ultimately, the Kathleen Grundy case unlocked a pattern of behavior that had gone unchecked for over 2 decades. Grundy's daughter, Angela Woodruff, said in court, "My mother trusted Dr. Shipman completely. That trust cost her her life." Mate, The trial and conviction. Shipman was charged with the murder of 15 patients, including Kathleen Grundy, and forgery of the will. His trial began in October 1999. The jury heard expert testimony on forged documents, evidence of morphine overdoses, witnesses describing Shipman's manipulations, the oddities of the Grundy will, and his motive for financial gain. On January 31, 2000, he was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to life imprisonment with no possibility of parole. 9. Aftermath and impact. Kathleen Grundy's case did more than bring down a serial killer. It exposed systemic flaws in the UK medical system. Shipman inquiry was launched, reviewing 18,000 deaths. The inquiry concluded he likely killed between 215 and 250 people. Laws changed regarding death certification procedures, controlled substance monitoring, oversight of general practitioners. Angela Woodruff never stopped advocating for victims' families. She said, "What Shipman did was not just murder. It was a violation of trust, of decency, and of the humanity that binds us to one another." Death in a cell and unanswered questions. On January 13, 2004, Harold Shipman was found hanging in his cell at Wakefield Prison. He had committed suicide just one day before his 58th birthday. He left no confession, no explanation. His death denied victims' families the closure they desperately needed. Some called it justice, others a coward's escape, but to this day questions remain. Did Shipman kill certain victims to cover up an affair? Did Deborah Massey know more than she ever let on? Was his obsession with control also rooted in a need to protect something or someone? Harold Shipman will forever be remembered as the UK's deadliest doctor. But the full truth of his crimes may never be known, because sometimes the most terrifying killers don't just act out of cruelty. They act out of passion, possession, and the desperate fear of losing someone they love. Closing thought. Kathleen Grundy, in death, became the woman who finally brought Harold Shipman's monstrous crimes to light. A dignified, intelligent, and caring woman, her suspicious end unraveled the dark double life of the doctor, trusted by an entire town. And in doing so, she saved untold future lives. Investigation and arrest police began analyzing Shipman's medical records. What they found was horrifying: a pattern of deaths shortly after his visits. Many patients died in similar ways, sudden, peaceful, and uninvestigated. He often altered medical records after death, using outdated computers to fake long-term illnesses. The exhumations of 15 patients all showed signs of heroin overdose. In September 1998, Shipman was arrested. The trial and exposure. Shipman was tried in October 1999 for the murder of 15 patients. The trial revealed he had forged documents and death certificates. He often used his position to manipulate grieving families. He insisted he was innocent, even as the evidence mounted. On January 31, 2000, he was found guilty of 15 counts of murder and 1 count of forgery. He was sentenced to life imprisonment, with the judge recommending he never be released. The real number of victims. After the trial, the Shipman inquiry was launched, led by Dame Janet Smith. It reviewed over 18,000 deaths, medical records spanning decades. Final estimate: Shipman murdered between 215 and 250 people. Most were women aged 60, 95. Many were cremated, so no definitive proof was ever found. Closing thoughts. The monster in a white coat. Harold Shipman wasn't just a serial killer. He was a betrayal of the ultimate trust. A doctor, a healer, a murderer. His case changed UK medical laws forever. Death certificate protocols were revised. Independent checks were introduced for cremations. Doctor oversight was dramatically tightened. But the most chilling part: he killed not with a knife or a gun, but with trust. If this story gripped you like it gripped us, don't leave without doing 3 things. Hit that like button. It tells the algorithm you want more true crime like this. Drop a comment. Was Harold Shipman just a killer, or was there more behind his madness? We're reading everyone. Subscribe and turn on notifications because we've got more shocking true crime stories coming your way every single week. And share this video with a friend who loves dark history, because some stories deserve to be remembered and warned about.